Hey gorgeous, welcome to Happy Go Fabulous. I am so thrilled that you're here. This is our space where we get real about life, the good, the messy and all the juicy bits in between. Real talk, real life and a whole lot of delicious living. But I must warn you, listening may cause unexpected outbreaks of fabulousness and real life magic. Hi, I'm Catherine and I am so incredibly passionate about helping inspired, motivated, impact-driven, freedom-seeking people just like you to do the deep inner work to create those beautiful outer wonders in life. It's all about revolutionising your relationship with yourself, where you fall madly, deeply in love with who you are and create a life so fabulous you can't wait to jump out of bed every morning to live it. Ready? Because ordinary living is so last season. Life's waiting and it's time to make it fabulous. Let's shimmy on in. Hey gorgeous, how are you? I am recording this episode. I had a couple of things happen last week and I've just been reflecting on them, and the podcast episode seems to be they're responsive to what's happening in life, and this is what's happening in life at the moment. So the episode title is about the yes trap, why saying yes isn't always the kindest answer, and also going to focus on, when to say yes and also the courage to say no. So what I'm going to do is just explain a couple of things that have happened, and I also find that when they're happening in my personal life, they tend to be happening in other people's lives as well. So I've just got off the back of a beautiful experience as part of the Get Your Soul Glow On, the coaching, the week of personal coaching that I've been doing, and just being really laser focused with just amazing people who have made some really beautiful and amazing results. But one of the themes that came up for one of the people that I was working with was very much about this saying yes when I really don't want to say yes to things, and then the impact and the fallout of that. So it's about the impact of saying yes when we really mean no, what that means for us. But the experience that I've had this last week is when somebody else said yes to me and the impact it had on me when really they meant no. So that sounds a little bit obscure at the moment. So let me share with you that I have said yes to a lot of things that I have really deep down not wanted to say yes to. And I don't know if you relate to this, but the reason that I say yes to things when I really don't want to do it is primarily because I don't want to let the other person down. I don't want to let them down, and I don't want to have a difficult conversation up front by saying, actually, that's not what I want to do. So instead, I was going to say the old version of me, I think still the current version of me might do it a little bit, but she does it less. But definitely the old version of me, I would be asked, this wasn't for everything. Please, this wasn't for everything. But there were a couple of examples that I can recall, and they were big examples and they had a big impact, where I was asked to do some work for somebody. And in my heart of hearts, I did not want to do that. It did not feel aligned, but I was put on the spot and I was asked to do this work in front of other people. And my gut told me this is not going to end well. This is not going to end well. It's not really aligned with what I want to do. And I was asked to be involved in a project that, potentially there were elements that would be good for me and my business. There would be certainly some exposure that would have been good for myself and my business. But the way that I was asked, it was very last minute, it was very responsive, and it was done in front of a group of people that it would have been very awkward for me to say looking back now, all I needed to do was to say, let me think about that. But at the time, and this is going back maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I was asked and I didn't feel for whatever reason that it was okay for me to say no in front of that group. I felt a little bit pressured, in all honesty, I did feel pressured, and, it was all about me. It wasn't about the other person, but I said yes to being involved in this work. And I really resented that. I did the work and I did a really stellar job. I put a lot of effort into what I did, but the gut feeling that I had initially that it wasn't aligned, that kind of played out throughout the process. And there were elements where that person were they unscrupulous methods of getting me involved? Maybe not. Maybe that sounds a bit dramatic, but they weren't. I don't know. They could have been better efforts. That's how they did work. And in working with them, there were elements where I was putting much more effort in than the other person was. I'm trying to make this vague. You know how I always try and make the examples vague because I don't want to out anybody. That is not my goal at all. But the person that I was doing the work with, the practices were, I felt let down by some stuff, but I did a really, really good job. But deep down, it felt misaligned. I felt resentment about it. And when I have since unpacked this, I have unpacked it. I'm obviously holding on to a little bit for it to come up as an example, but it was about me not trusting or not feeling that it was okay to say no. Deep down, I knew that I didn't want to do that thing. So what was stopping me from just saying, oh, even let me think about it, or, thanks for the offer. It sounds really great, but that's not a good fit for me at the moment. Like, that's easy. That's so easy. But why was it that in my mind that felt like such a difficult thing to do? I've done a lot of work over the years. That's obviously one of the things that was still for me a couple of years ago that was just surfacing to do some more work on. So why is it that I didn't say thanks but no thanks? Because I didn't want to let the person down. I didn't want to look like I was not that I was being difficult or something. So that was one example. I've worked with a client on the back of the Get Your Soul Glow On program, and she was talking about similar examples for her as well, that she's going, Catherine, why do I keep saying yes to stuff that I don't even want to do? And why do I overcommit for her, doing things that I then end up resenting? And so we unpacked that. And for her, it was very much about, I don't want to let these people down. I feel like they're pressuring me. So that was similar to what I had experienced. And I don't want to let them down. And it's just like, oh, okay, there's a bit of a thread for us to work with. So we definitely worked with that. What is it in there that you don't want to let people down? And it was about what could you do instead? So, and the other thing we talked about, what is the impact of you saying yes to yourself? And what is the impact of you saying yes to things that you really don't want to do to the other people? And she was just like, oh, resentment for both of us was the thing that came forward, that we really resented that we were doing things where we really probably should have said no to. So resentment, and when we're feeling that resentment, that's not a nice feeling. I don't know about how your resentment feels. Mine feels like an icky knot in my stomach, and it's kind of a really tight, sharp emotion. It's not a flowing, gentle, loving emotion. It's just like fuck you emotion. And fuck you it's just a general fuck you emotion. And so the client that I was working with, we talked about, well, what does it feel like for her? But also, what is the impact of her saying yes to things to the people that she has said yes to? Now, we both are very, very professional, and we do put a 100,000,000% into what we do, but energetically, we're probably bringing that resentment with us. So are we putting our best foot forward? I would say not. I would say not. Even though we do a good job, is it the best job we could do? Probably not. So we're bringing energetically that feeling of resentment. We're also years gone by, I've learnt this one over the years, but I would say yes to a lot of things because I really enjoyed them. It wasn't that I didn't want to do them. I wanted to do so much stuff. And it's just like, yeah, sure, I want to get involved in that. It's like, oh, yeah, I want to get involved in that too. Oh, how about we do blah, blah, blah. And I would just be overcommitted. I would then be just like, oh, I can't do all this stuff. And it was probably my life was feeling very, very overcommitted, and I was in that burnout phase probably 3 years ago when my dad was not well and he was in care, and there was some other, and John's mum then ended up not being well, and there was work was really busy and we had a lot of things going on, and I was just like, oh, I feel some burnout. I feel some burnout happening. I'm going to have to stop saying yes to things. And a lot of it was saying stop saying yes to myself. Stop saying, Catherine, oh yeah, I'm going to do this, because you can't do everything. So the impact can be the emotions, those negative emotions, the resentment. The impact can be physical burnout and mental burnout and emotional burnout, that we're just taking on too much and we can't do it. It's like we're juggling all the plates and something's going to drop. And the feeling, it's, when something drops is sometimes a relief, but when we're going, oh, I'm trying to keep all these things juggling in the air, that's when it can feel really, really overwhelming there. And the misalignment, the feeling that this just does not feel aligned with what I want to do. When I first started my business 15 years ago, more than 15 years ago, I said yes to a lot of work. It was always aligned. I never just said work to dodgy, shitty, crappy work, but starting out my own corporate consultancy, training, executive coaching business, there were some jobs that I did. I didn't love them. I liked them. I didn't love them, but I did them because they paid the bills at the time and it was cash flow. I was able to say no to a lot of those jobs the more established I got in my business. And then I really did things that were just fully aligned. Even though I say that, everything's been aligned, but it was just like jobs that didn't bring me as much joy, I guess. And jobs that were harder. Then I would just like, yeah, sure, I'll do that. I'll do that because I just needed some cash when you're building a business. But now I choose jobs that are I choose jobs. There's a lot of jobs that I say thanks, but no, thank you. That's not where I'm at the moment. So I'm learning more. So that's where I say yes, the impact that it can have, that sort of emotional burnout and misalignment. But what has happened for me just more recently is when other people have said yes to me, where really they should have said no. And this I haven't been the one pressuring. And again, I'm really conscious I don't want to out people, but I'm moved. I'm now in our beautiful seaside sanctuary. The first 6 months of living here was very much, I was retreating. It was a healing process for me, and it was introspection. And I met some of the locals here, but I didn't socialize a lot. I really wasn't in that space to do it. And now, since the beginning of this year, it's like, okay, now I can breathe. I'm ready to start connecting with the community, and I'm looking for my people. I'm looking for business people here. I'm looking for social people here. I'm looking for connection. I'm looking to be part of this community. And it's a small community. The population is 7,000. So I've moved from Canberra, which is 500,000, to 7,000. And then the little area, and we live out of town. We're 15 minutes out of town, and there's not even a township where we are. It's a little local area, but that's all subdivided, small acreage properties. So you don't bump into your neighbour very often you need to be quite deliberate about the connection. So I'm all about connection and I'm ready to connect. And so a couple of the little shops that I would go into, I was talking to the women there saying, is there anything, are there any women's groups here? And are there any, business and social and networking groups? And they said, no, there's not really anything around. And I'm like, oh, because I'm looking for something. I'm looking to meet people and to connect. And they said, oh, that sounds good. And I said, I used to run events in Canberra, monthly events where we'd have different guest speakers and we would have social connection, the happiness hive. And they're going, wow, that sounds amazing. Maybe we could do something and we could help and we could host something and we could do a little pop-up, meet and mingle type event. And there was a lot of stuff that they were excited about and volunteering. And I was just like, oh, that sounds really cool. It was like, oh, it sounds like I'm meeting some of my people that we could do this. And then they said, come back and talk with us and we can talk this through more. So a lot of it was coming from them. I wasn't driving this, but I was excited by this. So I went back in and had a chat and it was just like, yeah, no, we're pretty busy. We're pretty busy. We've got this business. We've got other businesses. We're starting up some other businesses. We've both got small kids. Life's busy and we don't have time for anything. And no, that's not anything. That's not what we're interested in. And I was like, oh, that's different to what how the conversation went just a few days prior. And I felt deflated. I felt like it was almost like these expectations. Had I reflecting on it, and the expectations were there that they were excited and keen, but they'd obviously thought about it afterwards going, no, we can't do that. So reflecting on the impact that it had on me was it possibly would have been more helpful had they had said, look, we've just got a lot going on. Like if there's an event, we might pop in, but we just don't have capacity to create anything. And I would have gone, oh, okay, yeah, cool. I would have gone, yeah, sure. And that happened in one of the other businesses as well. Like when I first came to the community, I popped into one of the businesses and really struck up like a lovely, I thought, connection with one of the women in the business. And I sort of planted some seeds and I said, I'm not ready to do it yet, but I'm going to be running some events and I'm going to be, different gatherings. And she said, oh my God, that sounds amazing. She said, let me know. We would really love to support you and we can help you to promote it. We can help to get your name out there and we can do all of these, amazing things. And I'm going, oh, that's great. That's awesome. Like that sounds really good. So I went in the other day because now I'm ready to start promoting things. And the particular woman I spoke to, she was there, but she kept very low profile in the background and didn't even come out and greet me. And the other woman said, I was talking to so-and-so a couple of months ago about these events and I'm now ready to run them. And the one woman said to me, she said, oh, I'm not interested. And I went, oh, okay. And she said, but I'll let the other women know here. But the one that said she would support me, she was there. But I think she then went, oh, actually, maybe no, I don't want to. So maybe it's something about me. But I guess where I'm getting at here is the impact of the messages that we give. So there, a couple of them are saying, yep, sounds great. But then when it comes to the actual commitment, it's just like, no, I don't want to do that. So it's me being the receiver of that. I would have preferred them to go to not build that expectation and just to be really upfront, like the second woman did when I popped in there. She said, no, I'm not interested. And I'm going, okay, cool. Well, I now know where she's at and I know not to go back in there. But when the ones that are sort of encouraging and saying, yeah, love to support, but when it comes to the crunch going, oh, no. It's just like, I think I would have preferred them just to be really upfront. So why are they doing what I did when I was asked to do the work with the person, not wanting to offend me, not wanting to let me down, not wanting to say, oh, yeah, they didn't even have to say anything. They didn't even have to they're going, oh, that's interesting. But each of the, as I'm talking this through, each of the people have sort of been the encouraging ones. So the impact of them saying yes, and it could be just who knows what the reasoning is for it? Who knows what the reasoning is? Maybe it's just like, yeah, not really interesting, or not really thinking that she was going to come back. And so I could just say, yep, I'd support her, thinking, that's just left, not realising that this woman's determined and is wanting to follow through. And I also see this with a lot of my coaching, leadership, executive coaching clients. And there's one person in particular who has said, I hate conflict. I hate letting people down. And he's the leader of the team. He's a new leader, but he said, I hate feeling like I'm letting anybody down. So when I'm talking with my team, I never say no to them. And I'm going, how does that work for you? And he said, well, it's really hard because they go off and do things that I don't want them to do. And then I have to have these really difficult conversations, but I hate having the difficult conversations, so I don't have the difficult conversations. Then they keep doing the thing and more of what I don't want them to do. And then I end up having this really, really ugly conversation. And he said, I know that it happens because I don't set clear expectations up front. And so it's, whether that's a yes or a no thing, but it's about being clear around the expectations, and that he, it feels uncomfortable. So I guess in thinking about this is that yes trap, that we fall into this yes trap of saying yes to things that we often don't want to do. And it's not always the case, but we can say yes to things because we don't want to let other people down. We commit to things and then we might let them down at the last minute. And I think that it's kinder to be upfront with people, or like when I was asked to do that work with somebody, all I needed to say, because I felt it in my gut that it was not aligned, so all I needed to say is, let me think about it, and not commit on the spot. I don't think it's necessary. I could have still come back and said yes, but I think the thing for me is I committed on the spot when it felt like it wasn't aligned. And one of the things that I have really learned through being exposed to human design, that we have an individual blueprint, who we are designed to be in this lifetime, but there are different elements to that, and one of them is our authority and how we make decisions. And there are different ways that people can make decisions, and mine is an emotional authority. And the key for me is to ride out the emotions of how I feel about things and not make a decision in the moment. That it's about really it's tapping into the feelings that I have. And it's about allowing myself, and these are for big decisions. This isn't for, what am I going to have for dinner? Although I do that for what I'm going to have for dinner decisions. But this is, I kind of have a personal criteria that I put. If something's going to cost me more than, say, $300, and if it's going to have an impact on my life or business, I will give myself 24 hours at least to ride through the emotions of how I'm feeling about that at different stages. And if it's a really big decision, that will have impact on my life and others in my life, I will allow a bigger space for me to think that through. So reflecting on that one event where I said yes in the moment because I felt a little bit pressured and I didn't want to let the person down, what I do now is I do say, sounds great. Let me think about that. I just need to see where that fits in with what else I've got going on, and I'll get back to you. Easy, easy, easy. And it takes the emotion out. It takes the emotion out of me saying it to them. I don't feel that I'm letting them down because I really need to go away and think about that decision. And it's about not being rash. And it has really helped me to be fully aligned with the decisions that I'm making. It's helping me not to feel that resentment and shitty feeling because I've said yes to something that I don't want to say yes to. So I've become very, very discerning about where I commit my energy and effort. And I also have much more courage to say thanks, but that doesn't, or just thanks, but no. Different versions of that depending on who I'm talking to. If it's with family, it's just like, no. If it's with, inner circle, outer circle, and things like that. So I have versions of how I will say that to people. So I guess it's really listening to your body, really tuning into what feels right for you. Don't rush decisions. Don't commit to something just because somebody has asked you in the minute, and also don't commit to things because you don't want to let the other person down. Sure, be caring and considerate, but also the impact that those decisions, the flow-on impact can be, they can linger. They can absolutely linger. And think of the impact on yourself, but also think of the impact on other people. So, the impact on you, but I think it is better to say no up front because that is kinder. If that's what you mean, don't just say no because you don't mean no either. It's about tuning into what you want and being kinder to people and not having this building up an expectation in others that you're going to do something and then you let them down at the last minute because you go, oh, yeah, no, I can't do that. So hopefully that helps with that process. If you're interested in the human design, I do personal consultations around that. You can get a foundation blueprint that talks about your human design and, what you're designed for this lifetime, and also some of the key elements. And then I do more in-depth coaching. So once people are familiar with their human design, about how they can really dive into the different elements of it personally, but also in business as well. So if you're interested, I'll put the details in the show notes about the human design consultations and mentoring. It's hugely powerful, and it has been a big game changer. That riding the emotional wave for me has been it's been a game changer. It has absolutely been a game changer. And I was even talking to my daughter who's wanting to buy a new car. And when we're wanting to buy new things, we get swept up in the emotions, and they're more than $300. And it's easy to get swept up in the emotion, and it's easy to think about, oh my God, if I don't make the decision now, I'm going to miss out. And sometimes we can rush into a decision. We need to be able to step back and ride it out to say, well, okay, I'm going to give myself 24 hours before I come back and say yes, or before I come back and say no. Sometimes I'm talking about the yes trap here. Sometimes we can say no a little bit too quickly as well. So anyway, some food for thought. The yes trap, why saying yes isn't always the kindest answer, and having the courage maybe to say no if that's what you feel. Anyway, hugs, happiness, and keep being fabulous. Bye. Thanks for tuning in to Happy Go Fabulous. I hope you loved it. If you did, could I ask a big favour? Please subscribe, leave a review, and most importantly, share the love and let your besties know about the podcast. This will help get it into the hearts and ears of all the gorgeous souls who need a little bit of fabulous in their life. If you'd like some more high vibe happiness in your life, come and visit me on my Happiness Hive socials, and make sure you've signed up to my newsletter, your weekly drop of juicy goodness. Pop over to my Happiness Hive website and click on the link Working with Catherine. I'd love to help you make life amazing. Until next time, keep being fabulous.